Hello and welcome to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher, where today we find ourselves in the offices of Jews for Jesus in Tel Aviv. The aim of this organisation is to make the person of Jesus an unavoidable issue to Jewish people around the world. Dan Sered is Director of Jews for Jesus in Israel, a position he's held since 2006. As you would expect, this organisation, with its high-profile campaigns, provokes much debate and not a little controversy. So who is Dan Sered and who and what have shaped his life? His parents originally came from Romania, emigrating to Israel with their parents when they were teenagers. Coming from a communist country, they were naturally atheists, and it was into this environment that Dan was born. However, from an early age, he always believed God was real. And aged 13, while studying for his bar mitzvah, Dan had a question for his rabbi, as he now explains.
During that time for my bar mitzvah with an Orthodox rabbi, I decided to go and ask him that question. I was sure that he'll have an answer for me. So I went and I asked my rabbi, when the Messiah comes, how would we know that he's really from the tribe of Judah? And then my rabbi didn't really have an answer to that question, which kind of left me not really believing that this whole wait for the Messiah that Orthodox Jews has makes sense. It didn't make sense to me, but I didn't know what to believe in. I didn't have any other options. So I completed my bar mitzvah studies. Of course, we did the big bar mitzvah ceremony, but I went back to my secular ways after that experience. Went back to, believing in God, but not really knowing what to do with it next,
So how did you work this one out? What happened?
So when I was 15, my dad was working. He had an army career, and he was a colonel in the IDF. And when I was 15, he retired. But he retired with the understanding that he was going to go and still serve the country, but this time in the Ministry of Defense. And his first assignment was in New York, in the consulate in Manhattan. So my mom and I moved with my dad to New York. So I graduated from both high school and university on Long Island. And while I was going to university, I have a Bachelor of Science in Math. So my major was math, and I got a job tutoring students who needed extra help in math while I was completing my Bachelor of Science degree. And was helping a girl named Dina one day with her math homework. And after I finished assisting her, she recognized my accent in English, and she asked me if I was Russian. And I said to Dina, no, I'm Israeli. And she said, well, I'm also Jewish. So we had something in common. So we continued talking. And then at some point in the conversation, Dina told me that she believes in Yeshua. Now, being fluent in Hebrew, I know what the word Yeshua means. It means salvation. But, today in Israel, there's nobody who's named Yeshua. So I didn't really know who she's talking about by telling me that she believes in Yeshua. So I asked her, who is this Yeshua that she believes in? And she told me that it's Jesus. And I was really shocked. First of all, I was shocked because I never knew that Jesus' real Hebrew name was Yeshua, was salvation. Second of all, I've never met somebody who was Jewish and believed in Yeshua, believed in Jesus. This was the first time. So I wanted to know more. I was curious. It was interesting to me. That day we didn't have time, so we said, okay, let's meet for lunch. And a few days later we met for lunch, and it was during that lunch that Dina opened the Old Testament scriptures to me and shared with me prophecies about the Messiah. Now, some of those prophecies you remember that I learned in school, but then she also shared with me new prophecies that I never read before, like the prophecy of Isaiah 53, of how Messiah would come and die for my sins. And that really, of course, touched me. And then Dina showed me in the New Testament how Jesus fulfilled each and every one of those prophecies. I believe my first reaction after reading and seeing all of that, my first reaction to Dina was, wow, what are my parents going to say about it? Which kind of showed that I really believed that. It took me a few more days because I first wanted to tell my parents about my new faith. But a few days later, I prayed with Dina to receive the Lord. I have to mention that 2 years later, Dina and I got married.
At what point, Dan, just to bring the story up to date, did you get involved with Jews for Jesus?
Well, actually, Dina and I got married in August of 99, and then Dina actually graduated from university before we got married in June of 99. And then in December 99, I graduated from university, and right away in January 2000, we joined the Ministry of Jews for Jesus. We completed the 6 months of missionary training in New York City, and then we were sent to serve here in Israel.
Many Christians see Jews for Jesus as a very radical organisation. It ruffles the feathers of all sorts of people. Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, I agree we are radical. We're definitely radicals for Jesus. So I would agree with that characteristic. I think it is because proclamation evangelism is not something that's very popular today among Christians. I know that's definitely true here in Israel. I mean, it's hard for me to understand why people, especially Christians, wouldn't be comfortable with us going out there and doing it. I don't think that our calling and the way that we do evangelism is everybody's call. I know it's our calling, and it's the calling of our ministry in Jews for Jesus. So I don't think it's the only way. I don't even know if it's the best way, but I do know that that's the way that God has called us to do it, to go out, go up on a high mountain and shout out as loudest as we can to tell Jewish people that Messiah has come, and that it's Jesus.
Now, Jews for Jesus has run campaigns all around the world where there are Jewish populations for many, many years. But it's only recently that you have started running those campaigns here in Israel. So why now?
Well, that's a very interesting question. First of all, I think that right now is the right timing in terms of God. I mean, we started our work here in Israel in 94. But the first few years, there was just this family, this couple who were here on staff, and really nothing was developing. But in the past 5 years, that's when our work here in Israel is really skyrocketed. And today, our Jews for Jesus branch in the land is the largest Jews for Jesus branch all over the world. So we're definitely seeing God moving the most here in Israel. And we're seeing more and more people coming to faith, more and more young Israelis who are believers who are saying, no, we want to serve God, be full-time missionaries in the land. So we're definitely seeing God's blessing. And I think God is kind of encouraging us, go on, continue, this is the time. So I would say it's because it's God's timing,
So what sort of reaction are you getting?
Well, we're getting different reactions, of course, and since most of the people in Israel are unreached with the gospel, and since out of the 5.5 million Jewish people that live in Israel, only about 5,000 of them know about Jesus. So there is a lot of unreached people out there, Israelis, Jewish people, just like us, who have never heard the gospel. So from the secular, mainly our reaction is, oh, wow, that's interesting. We want to know more. We don't know much. Yeah, come on. Yeah, send me a New Testament. Yeah, we want to meet with you one-on-one. There's that first initial reaction of interest because they never heard. So there's a lot of misconceptions that we have to correct, a lot of misunderstandings. So that's one reaction, which we can label as the open reaction, even though out of the masses of people who show interest, only very few come to faith. But then there is the orthodox reaction, which is obviously very hostile and very anti, and sometimes very violent as well. And just to give you a little bit of sense, in this campaign that we just finished, we got over 1,900 Israelis who told us, yes, we want to know more about Jesus. Yes, send us more information. And out of those 1,900, less than 1% actually prayed to receive the Lord. Out of those 17, who knows how many will actually go to church regularly, get baptized, it'll be even fewer than that. That gives you a sense. And on this campaign, we faced a lot of opposition and a lot of Orthodox who came in. Actually, one of our campaigners was from England, a girl named Heather. She was actually one of the campaigners that was really hurt by one of the Orthodox. She was standing with the banner. I remember seeing her when she came back from that outreach after standing in a street corner with the banner after an Orthodox came and jumped her, and the partner was holding the other side of the banner and stuff, and she was all with bruises and bleeding. But she was so excited to go out again and preach the gospel. So, that's one example of one of our campaigners really being hurt and really being beaten up.
So you're describing a very challenging situation that you're facing. You're going around the country from town to town running campaigns twice a year. So Dan, if I'm to ask you to look forward to the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years even, What are you expecting is going to be happening? What is God doing here? What is your understanding of where it's all at?
Yeah, well, my understanding, what I'm seeing God doing is that I'm seeing Him, first of all, raising an army here of believers who want to take a stand and say, you know what? We're going to stand for our Lord. And not just from here in Israel, but from all over the world, people are coming in and saying, you know what? We're going to stand for Jesus in Israel. We're seeing a lot of people all over the world who are saying, no, we're going to stand with Israel, we're going to support Israel, whatever. And that's great, that's important. But out of that group, only a few are saying, you know what? We're going to stand with Israel, but more importantly, we're going to bless Israel with the best blessings that there is out there, which is Jesus, because Jesus is the best. So I'm seeing more and more people, and the Lord really am gathering an army of people are saying, you know, we're going to come into Israel and we're going to preach the gospel. We're going to bring the gospel. We're going to bring Jesus back to the people of Israel. So that's one. Second of all, we're seeing one by one, little by little, step by step, Israelis here who are coming to faith in Him. We're not seeing a massive revival. We're not seeing a tent meetings where thousands of Israelis are confessing faith and we go out to the Jordan River and baptizing thousands of them. That's not happening yet. You know, I would like to see that happen, of course. But right now it's one by one, it's little by little, it's step by step. Little by little, we're changing the culture. More and more people are knowing that Jesus' real name in Hebrew is Yeshua, which means salvation, that He is our Savior, that He brings salvation, that He brings forgiveness. So those are the two things that I'm seeing God doing here in Israel.
Dan Sered, leader of the Jews for Jesus team in Israel. And you're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher, the programme that brings you the stories of Jewish and Arab believers living in Israel and the Palestinian areas today, all of whom believe that the only hope for peace in the Middle East is for people to know the Prince of Peace, Jesus Himself. If you've been stirred by listening to Dan and feel you'd like to do something to help, then you'll be interested to hear about the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, a small charity based in the UK that supports needy Arab and Jewish believers. You'll find articles, programmes and information about our tours to Israel on our website www.olivetreefund.org, where you can also leave a donation. If you'd like to receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either email inquiries@olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, P.O. Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. I'll be back at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.